That's terrible. Alright, I am working on the WJ again tonight. So last time we went out wheeling, we had a little issue near the end of the trail. I thought I broke something, like a drive shaft or something, because it was making like a clunk 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 noise. Turns out it wasn't that bad. It was just the transmission mount was bad, and so my front drive shaft was scraping. So where am I right now? So we got the front drive shaft still sitting there on the floor in the back. So I'm only two-wheel drive right now. And so I need to replace that transmission mount. So the transmission mount, I replaced that with one from the auto parts store when I put the long arm kit on. So it's only been on like maybe, I don't know, a little over 6 months, and that thing just didn't last. So what I did is I looked around and I found some heavy duty transmission mount and engine mounts from a place called IronMan 4x4. So this is what I got. So these are the motor mounts. Looks a lot beefier than the stock one. Heavy duty transmission mount as well. So it's like a poly bushing of some sort. Looks pretty heavy duty. So I'm going to try and get that put on, and hopefully I won't have the same issue in another 6 months. In order to get to the transmission mount, I got to drop the front control arms and take the whole cross member out of there. So got to get all that disassembled. So I don't know how much of that I'll get done tonight, but see how far I get. Here we go. Alright, so my plan here is I'm going to support the body of the vehicle underneath my radiator skid because it's nice and solid and it's hooked right into the frame rails. So I'm going to lift it up on that, put some jack stands on the front. I'm going to leave the wheels on the ground. I just want to get some of the weight off the suspension so I can get the control arms out. Now, since this is a radiator arm setup, I also have to disconnect the upper links right up there, so that, because otherwise this arm won't come down unless the entire axle pivots, and I don't really want to do that. I want the axle to stay where it's at because it's still attached to like the shocks and the springs, and I don't really want it to rotate, so I need to take that out as well so that this arm can come down out of the way. So this is why I jacked up the front end, because if there's weight on these will be really hard to get out because your suspension's going to be pushing against them. Even as it is, you can see it doesn't want to come out super easy. Everything's sitting on it. And definitely make sure everything is braced good, because once these arms come off, that axle's kind of, the only thing holding it on is the shocks, a little bit from, the springs are just perched in there, but the shocks and like the steering, since these are the only two things that hold a radius arm on. Yeah, you can see the axle moving when I'm doing that. That's because I need to get that, that top link out of there. Okay, let's see what happens now. Still wants to move. There we go. Got both sides disconnected. So now I need to put a jack under my transfer case to support the transfer case in the transmission, and then I can drop this cross member and get to that transmission mount right there in the middle. Okay, so I got 4 bolts there, and then there's another 2 up front here. These front nuts, they got flag nuts that I put in the frame when you install this, so I'm just pulling them out right now just so I don't knock them in further. Alright, I'm also going to undo the bolts on that transmission mount while I'm here. All right, now we can get a good look at what went wrong here. So let's see, this right here, yeah, that's my transmission mount. Let me wipe this grease off my hands and then I'll get you a closer look. All right, so yeah, there you go. And you see the problem here. That's not supposed to be like that. That thing is totally shredded. Wow, yeah. And like I said, this was just the standard replacement part from the auto parts store a little over 6 months ago. That's terrible. Alright, here's another look at this transmission mount now that I got it out. And you can see, yeah, ain't much holding it together there. So these stock ones, it looks like it had 2 connectors at the top, and that's about it. Probably just, you know, because they're supposed to like flex and help with vibration and stuff, but yeah, that just doesn't really hold up too well to off-roading apparently. So yeah, I'm going to pull that bolt out and then put these brackets on the new one. There you go. Yeah. I mean, this part's nice and thick, but yeah, like I said, it's just not designed for off-road use because it just ripped that thing in two. It's crazy. Yeah, so I remember when I put this thing in the first time, cranked that down pretty good the first time, and then I couldn't get the holes to line up. So I pretty much have to leave that loose and then get a wrench up in there once it's in there. So I'm pretty sure this part of the transmission here is aluminum. So you definitely don't want to over torque these. I looked up the specs, and as far as I can tell, it seems like they should be 35 for these, 50 for this middle one, and I don't know, 35 to 50 for these, I don't remember. But these definitely don't want to over torque going into aluminum, so. Remember this. So there's supports in the middle of this cross member that mean I have to actually put it in a certain way, and I think it's, yeah, this side has to go up on there first because it won't go past that. So yeah. I don't know if that's really in there or not, but I'm going to try and put the other side on while it is. Oh. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about. See these supports in here? This one's almost straight up and down, but this one's on an angle. So you have to get this piece hooked under that before you can get it up. So really that side has to go on first to go over that, and then this side goes up. What's going on here is, because my mount was bad, my transmission's down so low that when I'm trying to put this up with the good mount in there, it's hitting the mount and it won't come up all the way. So just need to get the transmission up a little higher. So The way this thing goes on here, it doesn't want to line up. Here's my problem right now. Yeah, these can't go any further that way. My bolt holes on the transmission mount are way down there. Gonna have to think about this for a second. Alright, so here's what I think happened. I think because the other mount was bad, the transmission has actually shifted side to side in the vehicle, so it's off center from where it's supposed to be. So what I did is I loosened these up really good, this bolt, so that I can move this back and forth. Right? So then I'm going to get those lined up in the cross member and then tighten this bolt up. Because it even says in the original instructions, you know, don't tighten this up, which I didn't, but I guess I have to leave it really loose because, like I said, I think it's crooked right now. Once I get these on and tighten that down, it should move it right into line where it's supposed to be. So that's what I'm going to do. Okie doke. Let's try this again. I remember this being a pain in the butt when I did the first time too. Lining these things up. I don't know why, but they always seem to be trouble. But you can see right there, it's right there. It just doesn't, the bolts don't want to go in. Right there should be it. But it's not quite. Oh, look at that. Should have thought of that like 10 minutes ago. So I don't know if you saw what I did there, but I just pushed the transmission over slightly. That made it like a million times easier. I don't know why I didn't think of that in the first place, because, I mean, whatever. Alright, well that's two. I'm gonna get the other two back here. Now, I think I want to put the rest of my cross member bolts in and then tighten that piece down. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I got all the bolts in, and now I just need to start snugging stuff up, I think. This is going to be interesting. My axle is moved that far forward, so that's going to be fun to get that back in. Alright, now the fun part. The bolt that goes through the transmission mount up in here. This one's a pain because I got to get a wrench on this side and a wrench on that side to hold it, so I'll see what I can figure out. Can't really see it very well, but yeah, I did manage to get a ratchet. There we go. Up in there, just barely, and there's just enough room to do the this cross member bolt, and I've got a ratchet on the other end, so I'm just going to crank it down till it feels like about right. That feels good to me. Feels like about 50. Alright. Okay, so now that I get the transmission cross member bolted back in and yeah, transmission mount and everything, I need to get the control arm links hooked back up. But as I was mentioning before, you can see the axle shifted a little bit, about that far back from where it's supposed to be. So now I got to get that back where I need it. So, what I've discovered is that I can actually use the wheel and push it back in place. So I just need a way to keep the wheel out there. So I'm going to see if I can push the wheel and then kick this under there to keep it straight. So I just kind of yeah, because the springs are wanting to push it out towards the front of the vehicle more. Alright, so now that I did that, I'm a lot closer. In fact, I'm a little too far, it looks like. Oh man, that is really close. Oh, it's so close. Just to go forward just slightly. See if I can move it forward without moving it up too much. That is really close. I don't know how well you can see that, but yeah. See that? So close, but not quite. So now it just needs to come back just a little bit. So you watch that, and you let me know when it's lined up. Oops, too far. That right there. Nope. Let's come back slightly. Can't see it very well from there, but it does. There. Yep. There we go. Beautiful. All right. One down, one more lower, and two more uppers to go. Alright, so I figured out a way to do this. So, since I have the front end of the vehicle still supported, the body and stuff, I can tip the axle easily. I put the jack underneath the mount for the stabilizer, and I'm not jacking up much here. I'm just using it to twist the axle, so it's not really supporting a whole lot of weight. Anyway, so I'm jacking on that, which is twisting the axle backwards. Since most of the weight is already on those front jack stands on the body, it just twists the axle backwards. And now my bolt holes line up. Alright, now that I got those tightened up, I just gotta let it down onto suspension and torque everything finally. Alright, and then I'm going to torque down the other side, but I won't bore you with that because it's the same thing over again. And I think that's going to be it for tonight. I'm going to leave the motor mounts till another time because it's late, I'm tired. But all in all, that wasn't too terrible. Worst part was probably remember not to tighten down the bolts on that mounting piece on the transmission mount until you get it in there, because you need a little play. That was probably the worst part, getting that lined up. And other than that, getting the links lined up actually went really well. I was surprised. I thought that was going to be a pain, but it actually worked out really well. So yeah, anyway, that's going to do it for tonight. Thanks for watching.